Hello, welcome to the weekly Main Street Media TV High School football preview show. We're about to take a trip across Middle Tennessee to find out where and who our Main Street Media of Tennessee area high school football teams are playing. We'll be hearing from the Main Street Media sports editors and sports writers who cover your teams for your local newspapers across the mid-state. And that means if you're seeing this in Middle Tennessee, we'll probably be talking about your favorite team. We will be making our way from east to west and north to south all across Middle Tennessee to find out what is coming up for all our local teams this week. To find out if your community is served by a Main Street Media of Tennessee newspaper, go to mainstreetmediatn.com. When you find your local newspaper, maybe consider signing up for a subscription so you don't miss any of the local news, sports, and more that your local newspaper has lined up for you each week. Well, it's time to get started. We'll go over to David Wilson over in East Middle Tennessee.
Hey everybody, this is David Wilson, East Middle Tennessee Regional Sports Editor for Main Street Preps. Here to give you a quick preview of all the Week 4 games across Wilson and Rutherford County. Region play is upon us in Wilson County as we enter the second week of September. And then start with region play with Mount Juliet, the Golden Bears, who are 0-3 on the season and 0-3 for the first time since 2015. They travel to Danny Watkins Stadium on Friday night for a meeting with the Lebanon Blue Devils, who are 3-0 and looking to move to 4-0 and get really good start to region play this week. Also in region action this week, it's Ezel Harding. I'm traveling from Bell Road over to Mount Juliet Christian Academy. As Mount Juliet Christian, they are 0-3 on the season, looking to register their first win as well. Also in region play is the Giles County Bobcats coming up from Pulaski as they travel to Watertown to face the Watertown Purple Tigers, who picked up their first win of the season last week against DeKalb County 31-0. In non-region action in Wilson County, it's the Greeno Hawks looking to rebound from a tough loss to Ravenwood last Saturday night. They travel right back to Williamson County. They'll face Centennial at 7 o'clock. Also, we have Wilson Central making the trip to Bellevue on the the west side of Nashville to take on James Lawson. The Lightning should be a good one there. And then rounding it out, it is Friendship Christian, who was 3-0 on its season and just had head coach John McNeil pick up his 300th career win. They're traveling to DeKalb County, who is 1-2 on the season. In Rutherford County, region action continuing on there. You have Smyrna taking on Siegel. Siegel picked up a game-winning field goal to beat Stewart's Creek last week. Smyrna lost to Oakland in its first region contest of the season. You also have Stewart's Creek taking on Stewart's Creek taking on Rockvale. Riverdale taking on Laverne. And Blackman at Nolensville. MTCS at Grace Baptist. PCA at DCA. Eagleville at Cascade, and a really good non-region matchup to look forward to down in Rutherford County. It's the Pearl Cone Firebirds traveling to Rutherford County to face Oakland and head coach Kevin Creasy and the Patriots. So should be a good one right there. You got region matchups in full swing now in not only Rutherford County, but Wilson County now as well. So it should be a good week. Look forward to talking to you guys on the wrap-up next week.
Thanks, David. Let's check in with Blaine Kellar in North Central Middle Tennessee.
North Central Regional Sports Editor Blaine Kellar here to give you what's on the schedule in Davidson and Williamson counties, as well as games to look forward to in the Sumner area. If you've been following along to our preview show, you may have noticed I switched up the order there, trying to keep things fresh for Week 4. Hope you've been following along here on Main Street Media Television. Hope you've been reading there on MainStreetPreps.com, as well as our 4 print publications, Gallatin News, Hendersonville Standard, Portland Sun, and Main Street Nashville. We'll have coverage of CPA, MBA, Davidson Academy, Good Pasture, and then we'll delve into the Williamson Public School scene as 4-time state runner-up Page hosts Brentwood on Friday. That's what we'll have in Nashville. A couple of out-of-state, out-of-city teams converging on Nashville on Friday. Ohio Power Archbishop Moeller takes on CPA and the Lions. Christian Brothers heads to MBA to take on the Big Red. All of those games, the ones I've listed, we will have coverage of on MainStreetPreps.com and in print at Main Street Nashville. In Sumner County, the schedule starts Thursday as Beach, for the second time this season, takes on East Nashville. Quarterback and Kentucky commitment Caden Powell is climbing the all-time leaderboards at Beach as his team continues to trend in a right direction. The Kentucky baseball commit is 96 yards away from the all-time passing yardage mark held by Nelson Smith. He's hoping to get his team to 2-1 on the season as well. Gallatin goes to Cookeville. That's the undefeated Green Wave against the winless Cavaliers to start region play there. Hendersonville looks for its first win when heading to Rossview. And then there's a fun little slate of 3 games here that I think are definitely worth watching for any general Sumner County football fan. We'll start heading back into Nashville as JP2 coach Rock Batten and his son Isaiah take the 2-1 Knights to FRA, Franklin Road Academy, led by former JP2 coach Justin Geisinger, as well as Knights transfer quarterback Hudson Holman. The Panthers are undefeated. It should be a fun contest to start the Division II AA Middle Region schedule. There's a battle of unbeatens happening in Robertson County with Station Camp. The Bison and the Yellow Jackets of Springfield are both looking to go 2-4-0. Another fun matchup that involves a Sumner and Robertson team is the Chase Brooks Bowl, as East Robertson coach Chase Brooks takes on his former team, the one he won a state championship with in the Portland Panthers. White House and White House Heritage renew their Rotary Cup rivalry. That'll be one worth watching after a few years away. Atlee Pond and Scott Murray tee off for the Blue Devils and Patriots. Other games on the schedule include Westmoreland going up against Smith County, a pair of 1 and 2 teams there, as well as Liberty Creek looking to start a winning streak after its first victory of the season. They go to Gordonsville. You can find all of this coverage on MainStreetPreps.com, as well as the Hendersonville Standard, the Gallatin News, the Portland Sun, and Main Street Nashville.
Thank you, Blaine. Now look, guys, we're just getting started. There's a lot more action coming up this week to preview. But first, let's take a break and hear from our sponsors.
He shoots, and he scores!
At Delta Dental of Tennessee, we know our success begins and ends with providing superior quality service, and that includes serving those who need it most. This year, we're celebrating 25 years of giving back to the community we call home. Delta Dental, along with our Smile 180 Foundation, supports Tennessee's dental colleges and oral health education, children's hospitals, free and reduced cost dental clinics, and other like-minded charities. Here's to the next 25 plus years of ensuring healthy smiles.
Welcome back. It's time to head down south to Maurice Patton in southern Middle Tennessee.
Hey, I'm Maurice Patton down here in southern Middle Tennessee, and welcome into week 4 of the high school football season, where the hope is it's not as wet as week 3. We get started with a Thursday night matchup as Moore County comes to Battle Creek. The Raiders coming in at 1-2. Battle Creek looking for their first victory at the varsity level. They are 0-3 thus far, with losses to Mount Pleasant, Columbia Central, and this past weekend down at Lincoln County. So the Grizzlies at home against Moore County in a Thursday night matchup. Shifting to Friday's schedule, Giles County opens Region 4-3A play with a road trip to Watertown. Both the Bobcats and the Purple Tigers coming into this one at 1-2. Somebody looking to get to 1-0, though, in Region 4-3A play on Friday night over in Watertown. The Bobcats traveling to the Purple Tigers there. In Region 5-1A action, a couple of 2-1 teams getting after it as Richland goes on the road taking on Huntland. Richland coming off a couple of pretty impressive victories, 28-19 at home against Spring Hill 2 weeks ago, a 4A program there, and then defeating White House Heritage this past weekend, 21-10. So the Raiders heading east, taking on Huntland in a Region 5-1A matchup. Couple of 5-2A contests on the schedule this week. Speaking of teams looking for their first victories, Loretto 0-3, coming off a home field loss to Lewis County this past weekend. Traveling west, going across the river, taking on Scotts Hill, again in a 5-2A matchup. Scotts Hill also 0-3, so somebody's going to get in the win column for the first time on Friday night when Loretto goes to Scotts Hill in Region 5-2A action. Also in 5-2A, Mount Pleasant goes to Summertown, big neighboring rivalry matchup. A lot of smack to be talked at the Sonic after this one, I would imagine. The Tigers and the Eagles, 2-1 each, both opening Region 5-2A play this week. Summertown coming off their second consecutive 2-point victory this past weekend, defeating Cascade 23-21 after winning 16-14 against Wayne County back in Week 2. Mount Pleasant falling for the first time in one of those two-day affairs from Week 3, losing 24-21 over at Forest. Finally, Lawrence County, 3-0 the Wildcats are under Garrick Barnett in his first season. Lawrence County traveling to 0-2 Spring Hill. The Raiders were off this past weekend, not expected, but off after their game against Glencliff was canceled on Friday night because of the weather. So unbeaten Lawrence County, winless Spring Hill, facing off in North Murray County on Friday night. Speaking of unbeaten and winless, Grace Christian out of Franklin coming to Zion Christian on Friday night. The Lions 3-0, Zion Christian 0-2. Their game against Creekside Christian out of Georgia this past weekend was stopped at halftime and declared a no contest. So Zion Christian coming into this one 0-2. Again, Grace Christian 3-0. Big matchup Friday night at Zion. Independence and Shelbyville will play a Region 6-6A contest over in Bedford County Friday night. The Eagles game against Columbia Central was also canceled this past weekend. Well, let me clarify. Independence's game against Columbia Central was canceled due to weather. Independence won their season opener, lost by 2 in Week 2, did not play Week 3 because their game was canceled due to weather. The Shelbyville Golden Eagles 1-2 after getting a 1-point victory at Franklin in Region 6-6A play this past weekend. So the Golden Eagles 1-2 at home, 1-0 in Region 6-6A play. This is a region game as well, as Independence will play its first league matchup. Also in Region 6-6A, undefeated Ravenwood at 3-0 travels to 1-2 Summit. The Spartans 0-1 in region play after losing on Saturday up at Brentwood. So Raptors, Spartans getting together in South Williamson County on Friday night in a Region 6-6A matchup. Non-region game, Columbia Academy at 1-2 goes to undefeated Lincoln County at 3-0. Again, this is a non-region matchup. Columbia Academy, since defeating Fayetteville in their season opener, has lost consecutive games both in Division 2A middle region play. First against Battleground Academy this past week in a two-day affair up at Pope John Paul II. Lincoln County rolling at 3-0. Should be an interesting matchup in the pit Friday night. Finally, on Friday night, in a game that will be seen as part of My TV 30's Friday Night Rivals broadcast series, Marshall County travels to Lindsey Nelson Stadium to face the Columbia Central Lions. Marshall County coming in at 1-2. Columbia Central 1-1. Again, their game against Independence this past weekend canceled due to weather. So Tigers and Lions at Lindsey Nelson Stadium on Friday night. That wraps up the Week 4 schedule for Southern Murray County. I'm Maurice Patton. We'll see y'all next week.
Thanks, Maurice. Up next is Northwest Middle Tennessee and Calvin White.
Hello everybody, this is Calvin White, Northwest Regional Sports Editor for Main Street Preps, here to give you a quick preview of all of the Week 4 high school football action in Montgomery, Robertson, and Houston County. Starting in Montgomery County, Clarksville is on the road at Overton this week. Clarksville coming off a big 38-6 win over rival Rossview. Clarksville got its first win of the season in that game last week. Rossview is hosting Hendersonville. Rossview still winless at 0-3. Kirkwood will host Northeast. Kirkwood 3-0. Northeast comes in at 2-1. West Creek is hosting Kenwood. The Coyotes are still winless. They scored their first points of the season in last week's loss to Antioch. Kenwood comes in at 1-2. Northwest travels to Montgomery Central. Both teams going into that one 1-2. Montgomery Central coming off a big win over Harpeth last week. Northwest fell 35-0 to Davidson Academy. And finally, in Montgomery County, Clarksville Academy is hosting Nashville Christian and 5-star quarterback Jared Curtis. Clarksville Academy coming off its first loss of the season. They fell 17-7 to Grace Christian out of Franklin last week. Moving over to Robertson County, Station Camp travels to Springfield. Springfield will get its second straight opportunity to knock off an undefeated team after the Yellow Jackets knocked off undefeated Portland last week. Station Camp comes into that one 3-0. White House Heritage travels to White House for this year's edition of the Rotary Cup. It'll be the first time those two teams have gotten together since 2022. White House and first-year head coach Atlee Pond looking for their second win of the season after downing DeKalb County in Week 2. East Robertson hosts Portland. East Robertson comes into that one 3-0. They beat Joe Burns 34-3 last week. That game was called at halftime due to weather. Portland, like I mentioned earlier, coming off a loss to Springfield for its first loss of the season. Greenbrier travels to Whites Creek. Greenbrier played a little bit of a game last week. Macon County led the Bobcats 7-0 early in the first half. That game was originally moved from Friday to Saturday before both teams mutually agreed to not play the game. Macon County got the win in the record book, so Greenbrier comes into this week 1-2. Joe Burns travels to Todd County. Up in Kentucky, Joe Burns coming in at 2-1. They lost their first game of the year last week against rival East Robertson. And finally, Innovation Academy is at Lookout Valley. Innovation Academy coming in at 0-3. And finally, in Houston County, the Fighting Irish travel to Wayne County this week. Houston County comes in at 1-2. They won their season opener against Stewart County 43-6, but have dropped their last two contests against Lewis County and Waverly. That'll do it for all of our Week 4 preview coverage from the Northwest Central region. I'm Calvin White. I'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Calvin. We've got a couple more stops to make, but let's stop here for another word from our sponsors.
At Delta Dental of Tennessee, we know our success begins and ends with providing superior quality service, and that includes serving those who need it most. This year, we're celebrating 25 years of giving back to the community we call home. Delta Dental, along with our Smile 180 Foundation, supports Tennessee's dental colleges and oral health education, children's hospitals, free and reduced cost dental clinics, and other like-minded charities. Here's to the next 25 plus years of ensuring healthy smiles.
When the arena lights dim for a concert, or when the crowd becomes one at a big game, you can almost feel like you're the biggest fan. But who's your biggest fan? It's the person that will get you home safely after a night of drinking. It's the person who looks out for your life to make sure you leave the stadium with someone sober. This could be a designated driver or someone who offers to get you a ride share. Because in Tennessee, fans don't let fans drive drunk. Brought to you by the Tennessee Highway Safety Office, a division of the Tennessee Department of Safety and Homeland Security.
All right, we're back. Casey Patrick is waiting for us over in West Middle, Tennessee.
Hi, my name is Casey Patrick. I'm the sports reporter for the Dixon Post, Cheatham County Exchange, and the Hickman County Times. I'm going to give you a quick rundown in just a few of the games in my coverage area coming up this Friday. Dixon County is going to be hosting Henry County at Red Hawk Stadium in Creekwood. Speaking of Creekwood, they're going to be on the road. They're traveling to Stratford. I got to see Stratford a few weeks ago. That could be a good game. East Hickman's also going to be on the road. East Hickman's traveling all the way out to Forest. They're going to play the Rockets. The Rockets came to Creekwood a few weeks ago. They got a young running back, Quincy Mitchell, and he's really good. So East Hickman's going to have their hands full. But y'all stay safe out there Friday night and have a good evening.
Thank you, Casey. And that does it for this week's high school football preview. Don't forget to turn on Wade and Casey each week with the Main Street Media Radio Thursday night game of the week. They will be in a high school football stadium in Middle Tennessee each week with their broadcast scheduled to start each Thursday at 6:45 p.m. And don't forget that Main Street Media TV has a lot of great high school, college, and professional football-based shows lined up for you this season. Make sure you keep an eye on your local newspaper, social media pages, or just download the Main Street Media TV app where you can catch all our great programming every single day. Also, don't miss our weekly high school football wrap-up show with these same sports editors and reporters who are covering your school's team every week. The wrap-up show is scheduled for every Tuesday at 1 p.m. during high school football season. Thanks for spending some time with us today, and we'll see you right back here next Thursday with the high school football preview show on Main Street Media TV.